UCF fans, this is Brian Smith with another edition of the Daily Knight, and I am also the publisher at Inside the Knights on Fan Nation, powered by Sports Illustrated. This episode is one that just needs to get out of the way. I did a little bit of an overview of Khalia Davis, how UCF can adjust to not having him in the lineup recently, and he is out with allegedly an ACL. I don't know if there's anything else, but Khalia will not play the rest of the 2021 season for UCF. With that, he's one of many. He's just the latest. I'm going to give a little bit of information about what I know and what do I expect over the next couple of games, but just basically an overview. Who has left the program and injured, etc. It's some of that, but it's primarily about injuries and how they impact your play calling and your decision making and recruiting and everything else. So with that, I'm just going to go from quarterback and move all the way through and head on down to the defensive side of the ball as well. So for segment one, it's basically a list. We've got Dillon Gabriel. Everybody knows he got injured on the last play versus Louisville, broken clavicle. He's out possibly for the year. We don't know. Depends on the player, how long it takes to heal and whether or not he can play again. A couple of months, give or take, from the time it happened. We shall see. Moving on to running back R.J. Harvey. He was injured in fall camp. He's the transfer from Virginia. Played at Edgewater High School in Orlando. He's a speedster. Certainly missed him not playing this season. I'd heard good things about him. He is out for the season, ACL injury. Wide receiver. This is a position that UCF has some depth, but you still don't want to lose guys, especially Jalen Robinson. He is a very fast player, has great hands. The one-handed grab that he made against Louisville being one of, if not the best catch I've seen in college football this year. Behind his head, with his left hand. I mean, that's ridiculous. And on fourth down in the end zone, by the way. That's a big deal. From what I've heard, I do not expect him back anytime soon. I'm going to leave it at that. I keep getting asked about it. Do not expect Jalen back in the lineup anytime soon. Moving on to running back and just kind of the overall theme here with the receivers. It's going to impact them that he's not in the game because teams can come up. So it's good that Mark Anthony Richards has started to step up like he did at the end of the East Carolina game. Just want to make a little note about that. Need more power. Johnny's a great player. We need to be able to rotate guys, and UCF is very fortunate to be in the running back situation they're in. Obviously, Isaiah Bowser being out. Forgot to mention him. Now, I'm not sure what his situation is, but I haven't heard one way or the other. But he is out, and he has been injured since early in the game against Louisville. Tried to play in the third quarter. Couldn't go, and he hasn't played since. Don't know anything further. Also, on the offensive line, I know it wasn't very long, and he's back in the lineup. Matthew Lee missed the Louisville game. That is unfortunate. He was able to play against Navy, and he's been able to play against East Carolina. That's good. Now the question is, can they completely get back in sync? It looks like they really started to in the second half, and offensive line play is about that, being in sync. Matt's a great football player, and I expect him to get paid playing football. Having him back cannot be understated. On the other side of the ball, Khalia we know about. He's out. Ricky Barber. He tried to play. Tried. He was dressed. Didn't end up playing against East Carolina. Does that mean he doesn't play against Cincinnati? No clue. You got to go through conditioning every day. You got to lift. You got to practice. How much do you do it? Not sure. Very important with Khalia out that he does. Keep that in mind. Tatum Bethune did not play in all the games so far this year. Just based on the last game, 17 tackles, kind of important. He looked great against East Carolina, but we need him the rest of the year. Hopefully that's good to go. Corey Thornton, cornerback. He came back into the lineup. Now, I don't know what his status is, and my guess that his cardiovascular is not where it needs to be. Corners just absolutely, unequivocally cannot miss time with any kind of head injury, shoulder, anything where they can't run. They can't miss a single day of cardio playing that position, and he did. How long it takes him to get the wheels going again, no idea. Plus, Brandon Adams, the other corner that played a lot and started against East Carolina, maybe he's the next guy. Who knows? But having Corey available, obviously a good sign. Now let's see where he progresses. These are just some of the guys off the top of my head. I started to write a list and I'm like, this is so negative. I don't even want to write it down. That's how bad it is. But with the end of segment 1 here, something to think about. Name a team that went through this many injuries and just segmented across the team like this. It's like, we're going to take one chess piece here, one there, etc. Running back is obviously the one that's kind of goofy because Bentavious left the team right before the season. Then RJ got hurt. Then Bowser got hurt. UCF's depth at running back is insane. They're very fortunate. They're still running the ball very well, and they're averaging like 170 yards rushing a game or something like that. It's very, very good. That's an exception to the rule. Now, something I talk about frequently, can't have that on defense. You just no team in the country has enough defensive players. So losing both D tackles, Tatum even for one game, starting corner, these things can happen. And then Eric Gilliard, as most probably know, has entered his name into the transfer portal. He was beaten out by Tatum Bethune, just straight up. He wants to start. He's leaving. This is another form of attrition. There's nothing UCF can do about it, but that leads to the following question. Can UCF sustain any more injuries and be consistently competitive the rest of the 2021 season? I'm going to give you a couple moments to think about that. Then I'm going to start segment 2. We have something here that is very unique. UCF is through 5 games. In 5 games, they've had more injuries and transfers, etc., than any team that I've covered or just followed in my lifetime. I've been watching football since the 1980s. And I've talked a little bit about the injuries, and I keep talking about them because I keep learning little bits and pieces more, hearing that Jalen's going to be extended, how long he's out. It impacts everybody else, and that's an example. But there are scenarios within this that everything just changes. Your play calling, where you go from here. Do you play a guy that you plan to redshirt? The list is pretty much endless. And of course, by the way, they play Cincinnati on the road this week. They're pretty good. Just so you know, there is no good way for Gus Malzahn and his staff to attack this. The option with the word good in it, let alone great, does not exist. You cannot make up for injuries. What UCF can do would be provide young men with opportunities. Here you go, Mark Anthony Richards. He flat out rang the bell. Scored the winning touchdown against East Carolina. Okay. Here you go, Josh Seliscar. We've got guys on the inside that have been banged up. We need you to produce more. He's got 3 sacks. Certain guys are stepping up. That's great. Here you go, Mr. Adams. I'm calling him Mr. Adams already because even as a freshman, he impressed me. Corner is one of the spots that I like to watch anyway because it's such a hard spot to play. It's not natural to run backwards, folks. It's just not. And he's a 6'2", 6'3" kid. He's got a chance to play on Sundays if he develops correctly because you can't teach what God gave him in terms of length and ability to run. And, of course, technique. That it'll take forever to know, but as a freshman, he looks pretty darn good. They've had guys step up. Now, the final piece to this, they need somebody to, what I'm asking here is a lot. They need somebody to elevate into like an All-American status. It could be Tatum based on the way he's played recently. 17 tackles. I don't care who you're playing against. 17 tackles is a lot. Bryson Armstrong went out and balled and had over 20 tackles against Navy. Linebacker core does a pretty good job. But to make All-America status, it's not tackles, it's where you tackle. Got to get more negative plays. They started that against East Carolina. They started moving the line of scrimmage. Then Khalia got hurt. They were still pretty good in the second half, but it's not the same. The linebacker unit, and they know this, will have to elevate his play again. Jeremiah Jean-Baptiste, that guy, he could be an edge defender, middle linebacker, whatever you wanted. He's a very unique player. He's played well. He needs to take another step, though. And they need to have other guys that are even just like Noah Hancock, different guys on the D-line. If they played before Khalia's injury or before Ricky Barber's injury 5 snaps, they may have to play 10. And for the double amount of duty they get, play better than they did in 5 on all 10. These are the things that need to happen. And it's the only way you're going to do it. Because right now, I mean, realistically, does anybody really want, if you take your colored UCF glasses off, is anybody going to pick UCF to lose to Cincinnati? Yeah, everybody is. Why? Cincinnati's better and they're at home and UCF is banged up. There's no reason to pick UCF. There's just not. This coming game will be more about players than any other game that UCF plays this year. Coach Malzahn, Coach Gibbs, everybody on the coaching staff, they can scheme it up all they want. It's going to be on players to figure out how we're going to do this, how we are going to work off one another, despite our brothers not being able to play. That's just reality. I don't like writing about it. I don't like talking about it. It's reality. They're in double digits on guys that have missed games through 5. That's ridiculous. And we're not talking about like, yeah, he might be out of there. Like Matthew Lee was an injury that we knew it was going to be pretty short term. Some of these others are not. They're just not. UCF is not in a good spot from what the coaches can do, but it's on the players. Yeah, and the medical staff helps and coaches, you got to scheme things up for the guys when they come back, blah, blah, blah. We have to find ways for guys that are second teamers, third teamers to be contributors. And then some of the guys that are still starting or have returned to the starting lineup need to elevate. It's really pretty much that simple. I have no idea which players that it will be. I'm thinking linebackers is the most important spot here because they are impacted directly with the D tackles being banged up. And I don't have no idea if Ricky's going to play this next week. Again, he tried to go against East Carolina. But that's a different dude in front of you that's taking up those blockers. And I'm sure Tatum Bethune at give or take 220, and that's probably generous, probably does not want to be taken on a 310-pound offensive guard. Just going to go out and speak for Tatum without asking permission because I wouldn't if I was him. D tackles matter for linebackers a lot. And that means guys like Big Cat, Josh Elliscar, etc., they got to continue to play their role and get sacks, make the quarterback move, pin in the running back, all that stuff too. But we need explosive plays. Sports Center lead in to the show plays within the scheme, not freelancing. Let me be very, very keen on this. Do not think that I'm saying they need to freelance because that's the worst possible thing they can do. Have to play within the scheme, run fits, period. It's boring, but it's true. They did it against East Carolina, and they held one of the most explosive players in the country to 65 yards rushing. It works. Even with Keaton Mitchell, Jerome Ford's coming up, etc. Can the linebackers do their thing? Can the O-line, now that they're back in sync, can they keep the ball away from Cincinnati? Can they elevate again? The guys that we know are good, is there another notch? That's what we're asking here. So with that, just note that I'm going to see Thomas Castellanos, the quarterback that is committed to the Knights from Ware County High School in Waycross, Georgia on Friday. I'm also going to be in the Jacksonville area on Wednesday and Thursday, checking out some prospects, doing some scouting. So there's going to be some more recruiting information coming up. If there's anything that anybody is curious about, you can send me an inbox to my FB Scout _Florida account on Twitter. Happy to try and answer anything. Check us out Inside the Knights. It's scrolling across the bottom of the screen. If anybody has any other questions, please feel free to answer on my YouTube. I post all these on YouTube. So everybody have a great night, and thank you very much.